HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance built as a comprehensive solution, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations to create a robust firewall of protection for owners servicing over 5,000 clients, easy-to-use platform, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. HB Next is the pioneer in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next.
Hello, drivers of getting things done safely and keeping your organization running smoothly. Welcome to the Drive podcast, where we navigate topics that matter to you and in the lives of professional transportation, DOT, and fleet. Together, let's navigate the roads to keep you safe and compliant, and your business is growing for the future. We're excited to share our third episode, 5 Steps to Successfully Onboarding Telematics with you, featuring our special guest, aaron.michaels of Powerfleet. Aaron heads up a channel partnership over the road division at Powerfleet in the U.S. He is based in Arizona and joins us with 6+ years of telematics experience. And as always, there's an interactive session, so add your questions in the chat. We will answer them in the Q&A session at the end of the podcast. And here's our host, Colton.
Hey, thanks, Garrett. And I got a quick update. I want to read to everybody on a little bit of a scam that's been going on, trying to get some information under your DOT number. So real quick, the email reads, an email is being sent to registered entities by someone pretending to be associated with FMCSA and requesting that you complete attached forms, which they ask for your social security number and or your PIN number for the safer side. FMCSA does not require such information on the official FMCSA forms. Don't fill these forms out or send those back in. Always refer to the official FMCSA forms that they put out. In some cases, they are also asking for a certificate of insurance and even driver's license to help protect you against fraud. There is also a threat that if you don't respond within a day, that you will be fined, which is also not an FMCSA practice. The email shows that it came from the safety@fmcsa.gov or filing fmcsa.gov, which are not legitimate email addresses and are not used or owned by FMCSA. Next, if you reply to the email, it actually goes to another link on FMCSA safety, which is also not a domain owned or used by FMCSA. Not only is some of this information personal identifiable information, but this information would also allow the unauthorized party to gain access to your DOT account. The email containing a link is also very convincing that it is coming actually from FMCSA. Communications from FMCSA relating to information request of this type would either request you to log into your personal portal account at fmcsa.login.gov or come directly from an FMCSA dedicated mailbox. While these emails typically end in a gov ending, we encourage our stakeholders and customers to verify any email or communication they feel to be suspicious with the appropriate agency. The Federal Trade Commission recommends following certain procedures for email verification. Again, if you have any questions and you receive phone calls, text messages, or emails, always feel free to reach out to us at HB Next and my team, and we will verify and help you work through that. All right. So let's dig right into this. And again, special thanks and welcome to Aaron Michaels with Powerfleets. It's a privilege to have him on here. His expertise in the telematics and camera systems for commercial vehicles. I'm privileged to have him here today. So let's kind of talk about the 5 steps of what does that look like of implementing a camera telematics system within your fleet. And there's some things that I really feel that I've seen in the industry that I feel that a company, a management team should really think about. A lot of people, we think, hey, I need a camera system. My insurance rates are going high. I want to use it to see what my drivers are doing daily. Those type of things are very common in the industry that I hear a lot of companies ask me questions about. You know, hey Kevin, if I put a camera system in, is my insurance going to give me a discount? And as always, that's something that you have to talk directly to your carrier, your broker, to find out, is there a discount? Typically, can it help you reduce fraudulent claims or help you reduce claims in some cases? Yes. But before you really dive into that, there's some things that we need to ask ourselves as a company. First of all, we should think about, what are we wanting to see? What are we wanting to capture? How many vehicles are we going to put this in? Are we putting it into our day-to-day operation, like our service vehicles, our transport vehicles, or are we going to put it in our entire fleet? In some larger companies, you'll find that upper management may have company cars. So we think about that number and what that looks like. But then, more importantly, as a management team, you need to look at, when was the last time you actually rewrote or revised your driver safety manual? Because this is going to play a huge part in it. And we're going to get into it a little bit later in the discussion today on what happens if you don't have a well-written driver safety policy that covers these items. Who has access to it? Who's monitoring this on a day-to-day basis? What are you doing with the information? Those are all questions that you should ask. But more importantly, there's so much more to telematics and camera systems. And in a few minutes, we'll explain a little bit more what that means. But there's a lot of bells and whistles with these systems. I was doing some research and I was looking at the different systems out there, and there are literally, I would say, hundreds of different systems out there, whether it's just telematics or it's a combination of telematics and cameras, what information you get from them. In ELD systems, if you're a interstate carrier transportation, that's also going to have a key into it or a part of it. So the biggest thing is, let's figure out how many pieces of equipment we need to equip. Are we going to answer the question, do we need forward facing cameras or do we need forward and in cab facing cameras also? What type of losses or accidents or incidents are you having within your organization? If our drivers are overall very safe, they're courteous drivers, we don't have a high accident rate, but we want the camera system to protect ourselves, it may be beneficial for you to simply go with an outboard facing camera first. So the other thing is, let's talk to our insurance company. Let's talk to our broker and ask them, hey, I'm trying to be even more compliant, more safety within the industry. How does this affect my insurance? Will it affect my insurance? These are questions, that we should really bring up. And the other question that we always want to know is, hey, what is our drivers doing? But is that something that you need to know,
Let's
and
talk
is
to
that important within your organization? There's many other things with the telematics and the camera systems that have great benefits to a company, and those are things like fuel consumption, idleization time. That's when your vehicle's just simply sitting, idling, burning fuel, but not going anywhere. I recently did a report for a company and showed that he had several vehicles within his fleet on a construction site that were idling almost 8 hours a day. I did a little math. The average vehicle, newer vehicle, consumes about zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.9 gallons of fuel per hour just idling. I did this towards the number of vehicles that they had in their fleet that were idling all day, came up with the average of what our unleaded gas was going for that month in Metro Atlanta here, and showed him he was paying potentially about $10,000 on extra fuel for what he was spending. So, when it comes to the camera and the telematics systems, let's ask Aaron, what you're the expert in this. If I'm not real sure on that, what is the difference between cameras and telematics within the fleet?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kevin. So a camera, yeah, it is an event recorder. And yes, it's recording all the time, but its main functionality is to flag events for someone in the back office to review. Things such as following too close, a forward collision warning, or maybe even distracted driving. So that's the camera using AI to provide those type of alerts, some
Okay.
notifications to the back office. The traditional telematics device, the black box that's plugged into the engine of the vehicle, it does some similar things. It can track miles driven, just like the camera, and speeding, hard braking, harsh acceleration. But it really comes down to being able to read other things out of the engine itself, like fault codes, or maybe the real true miles by state that's used in IFTA. So they're very similar, and we have customers that use them both because they need rich data from both sides of that. But very very similar in capturing the main things that your customers would be concerned about when it comes to safety.
Okay, great. So, in a nutshell, the telematics is capturing data and putting it into a report in whatever level that I need it. The camera can kind of give me the same thing, but it's also capturing video, correct?
Spot on.
All right, great. So we figured out with our company, you know, in this next section is going to be what's the best camera system and what's going to work well for your company. We're going to also explain what to expect in the first 30 days of launch, how to monitor your systems, and really what that looks like. So let's get into what systems works best for your fleet and company. So we've decided, yeah, I need that dispatching and help me with routing, and I want to see if the drivers are excessive speed, following too close, the braking that Aaron just explained. And I'm really looking at there's tons of companies out there. There's large companies and there's smaller companies. What company is best for my fleet? Um, you know, do they all provide about the same type of data? And how do I determine that? So, some things that you should think about are, and questions that you ask when you're looking at a provider is how long, what's the process on the installation that is going into my fleet? Again, part of that's going to be a key factor is how many vehicles are we actually putting the system in? you know so we figured that out. We're going to ask that, and while this is going on, we're going to start working with management on, hey, this is what we're going to implement into our driver safety policy on the rules and regulations. A camera system can actually, and telematics could actually hurt you more if you just put it in and ignore it, because we're going to talk about how the insurance and attorneys, if they discover this in an incident, how they can use that against you. So will we and should we monitor it on a daily basis? Absolutely. To some level, you need to know what is going on once you put that system in there. And why is that? Because if we're not addressing critical items like a driver and excessive speeding, or he's following too close, or road rage incidents, or anything like that, then it can come back to really hurt us as a company in the event there's an incident. So, the other part is, how long is this process going to take us to get up and running? We've kind of narrowed it down. We know what system we're going to go with, the provider, and we start working as a team to help write and have a well-defined driver safety policy. If you're not really sure how that should look, make sure you reach out to a safety provider or a third party that can help you with that. HB Next, we have a ton of experience, probably 25 plus years, on not only writing safety manuals and driver safety manuals and employee policies, but we can help guide you along in that process. It needs to be careful because remember, the insurance carriers or your attorneys may possibly get this in the event that we have an incident. So, you know, let me kind of ask this next question is, uh, how do I pick that right company, and what is the installation process and to get it up and running? Aaron, if I decide to go with Powerfleet and I say, hey, I have 25 vehicles, I've had my policy, and I've talked to Kevin over at HB Next, and he's guiding us through what we should do on a day-to-day basis. And he's talked to me about some other stuff like classes with my drivers and that. Kind of walk me through that process. What does that look like with a company such as Powerfleet?
Yeah, and I think that first element, Kevin, is really important. Get with HB Next, get with your team, and figure out what's important to the organization. If speeding is important, needs to be part of the of your policy, right? Your driver policy. But the reason that you start there is when you're trying to figure out which telematics provider to go with, you have to make sure that they can address what's in that policy. Makes sense, right? So start there. But once the organization has determined what's important to them, then now really you got to start thinking about, well, which vehicles are we going to put this in? Which depot are those vehicles located at? Do the drivers take their trucks home? Because you have to think about it from an installation perspective. We have installers all across the globe. We're a global company. So it's no problem for us to tap into our resources to get installers dispatched. But if you're able to bring multiple vehicles into one location so that we can install 5, 10, 15, 20 at one site, then that makes the installation process go a little faster. So when you look at just the whole thing, Kevin, once you understand what vehicles need it, where are they located, when are they available, weekends, etc., the whole thing could happen within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the size of the fleet.
Okay. Am I going to lose any time with the installation and my drivers out there working?
We want to work around that. So we ask, hey, when are the vehicles available? When are they not producing revenue or doing jobs for the organization? So we do our best to work around that.
All right, perfect. So as management, I've decided I have 25 vehicles. I'm going to put camera systems in. I've worked with HB Next. We've got a good driver safety policy in now. Now the cameras they're in and they're up and running. I've assigned someone within my organization, what that is actually going to look like. How are we going to monitor this on a day-to-day basis? It's really important to understand that the first 30 days, in my opinion, the first 30 days we put a system in is going to be kind of crucial. We're going to see things that we weren't really sure of. But before we get there, I want to have a information session. I feel it's important to let our employees and especially our drivers, because drivers' mindset is they're putting camera systems into our vehicles simply to watch what I'm doing and they're going to try to write me up. And that's really the furthest from the truth. The cameras are there to not only protect the company, but to protect the driver too. So, all right, we've got the cameras in. I've assigned it to the safety manager. Managers have the login. We kind of understand the platform on there. Now I'm bringing my drivers in. My drivers, I'm going to explain to them, hey, this is the camera system. There's what we've been explained are triggering events. That means that triggering event is what's going to set the camera off. When that goes off, let's say it's speeding, the threshold is 5-10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And they will then have a triggering event. Following too close, the distance, everything like that. So, all right, on this next section, so we're going to talk about the 30 days. What are we going to start to see? What are we going to see within the video? My safety manager is reviewing data that comes in every morning on the telematics and on the camera side, the live events or the recorded events that have been triggered. And you really need to be prepared to see some of the things that you didn't expect that were going to actually be there. I've worked with some companies that, the drivers were eating their lunch while they were driving. There were illegal items in the vehicle even, and they just didn't feel that that was their fleet. Something to think about is that first 30 days, do we actually have do you have a grace period, kind of that learning curve with everybody? Obviously, if there's a critical incident, you're going to have to address that. If any laws were broken or major policies that were already in place. But the following too close, the speeding, the road rage, the excessive speed. That excessive speed, something over 15 miles an hour, I'm starting to see that. I'm addressing it with my drivers. I'm talking to the drivers. I think it's really important that when we have an incident that you bring the driver in and be ready to show them the video. A lot of drivers, if we just say, hey, you triggered on an event, and they say, well, I wasn't going that fast, or I just got on the acceleration a little bit to pass somebody. Bring them in and show them what's actually captured. In most of these systems, they have a pre-recording and a post-recording. So when it triggers an event, they're constantly on a loop of recording. What happens is you're going to see anywhere from 6 to 8 seconds before the event happened. So you kind of see how the driver's operating before he did that. And then the event triggers, you'll see the speed monitored in it and what he was doing. So bring the drivers in, explain it to them. Be positive. Let's turn this into a learning experience for everybody. It's going to be important that during this process and everybody's getting used to the telematics and your camera systems, that really, we use it as an educational, hey, look how close you were to this driver. What would have happened if they would have cut over in front of you? Or what would have happened if the weather was inclement and we had somebody spin out in front of us? Would you have been able to respond correctly? So we're getting all that. We're looking at everything each and every day. And should we explain how the system works by each event, every single thing that they're doing, or just on the critical items? Explain how this will be reinforced and what the company policy was. I like to kind of use that 30-day triggering event that, hey, we implemented this new policy. We have this new system in here. This is what it's reporting. This is what it's captured, and show that to the driver. Help educate them. A lot of drivers are going to be positive in their response on that. So, Aaron, can you help me a little bit better on the training and what level can you help my fleet and my drivers understand? Probably at first is really helping me pull that data. And how does that first 30 days play into it? Should I see a difference in that after that? Or how does your team help me?
Yeah, at first, your sales rep will help you understand the platform and what you should be looking at. But an official training is part of the onboarding process. So we like to train the trainer, as we call it. So someone with that's going to become the subject matter expert. So we want to spend some time with them, make sure that they understand the platform and where to look for things that are important to their organization. Past that, anytime that a customer has questions, they can call directly into our customer care and ask, hey, how can I do A or B or C? So they'll always have access to a live person that can help them. Plus, we have an online resource center that some really good video tutorials and some screen captures that walk individuals on how to do things. So customers that are new to our platform or even just new to telematics overall will have plenty of resources to ensure that they know what to look for. And then, Kevin, I'll just tell you that from my perspective, the first 30 days, you don't know what you don't know, especially if you don't have a telematics system. So really that first 30 days is just establishing your benchmark. This is the way we behave. And now we decide as a company, where do we want to get to? And you start taking small steps to improve quarter over quarter.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So we're up, we're running. I'm past that 30 days post launch. And, that first 30 days was huge. It's a learning curve for everyone. We're starting to enforce everything. I got the policy. you're always going to have a little bit of feedback from the drivers that, really aren't happy with it in a sense. But, you know, everybody's kind of wrapping their arms around it. Management is in there, but the biggest thing is it reducing our speed? Are our drivers driving a little bit safer now? Are they maintaining a better distance in between? Are they cutting down on the road rage and hitting the horn because they know that can be out there triggering? What I've seen with my experience with working with some of the companies, sometimes they just don't have the manpower to help or monitor it on a day-to-day basis. So how does that work? We're past the 30 days. I'm spending a little bit too much time. I need some help with monitoring this. How can this happen? And how can HB Next help you with that? We can help you pull some of these telematic reports each week and really tell you, hey, these were your main triggering events. These were your high speeds. These are the things that really you need to address, and not every single incident that occurred out there on your fleet. So, all right. So let's talk about how to monitor the overall system and who's accountable for that reporting. So I really want to say that, since we've been monitoring the system and looking at it, now I want to get into a little bit more on the telematics side of it. What is, like Aaron said in the very beginning, what are some of the features in the camera systems and in the telematic systems that can really help your company financially and improve? And where are those things? In the very beginning, I talked a little bit like on fuel consumption and idleization. Now I need to start pulling some of those reports and understanding the rest of the system, all the bells and whistles that come with your camera or your telematics. The other thing is, how do we use that to be more beneficial? Do we talk to our drivers about, hey, if we're going to be out of the truck more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, do we need to, shut the truck off, lock the truck up, save on the fuel? It saves on the wear and tear. The other one is routing and the pre-planning on that. Are we routing and dispatching going the right way on that? All this data is in there. We need to use it to our benefit to help the company overall. One of the things is, I see with a lot of companies, if we're involved in that critical accident or even a fender bender, it's kind of the he said, she said. And we see typically with commercial companies or a company that you got your name and logo on the side of the vehicle, the law enforcement responds. Who usually gets the ticket? They tend to want to blame the bigger, the slower vehicle. But if we state we have video in there, that video can be turned over and can exonerate us if we're going into court. I recently had a case with a big company. Their driver clearly had the green light. He proceeded, he's out in the intersection, and a car came from the driver's side, ran the intersection, and they kind of T-boned. When they T-boned, there was actually a witness who said, hey, I saw that company, they ran the red light. The company said, we have video, we clearly can show that, we weren't at fault. Ended up going to court, and sure enough, it exonerated the company. It proved that they had the green light. The driver was seatbelted in. He was not distracted by anything. And the charges were dropped. And the big part on that was how it went to the insurance and helped them. That data is saved. You can capture that. The court systems are recognizing it more and more now, that you didn't alter the video, you didn't change anything. And some of the good things about that is we can actually show our breadcrumbs or our route and our speed what that driver was doing leading up to that moment, you know? So, those are all very important. You got to have those things in place, be prepared. If law enforcement asks you out on the scene, was this captured on video? Do you have a system? Yes, obviously you got to have it. You got to be able to provide it to them. You got to it's grounds for discovery. So, how can the attorneys use this also? I'm not an attorney, but working on some of these cases when I was previously in law enforcement, what we see is they try to kind of paint that picture. They can pull that data of what occurred, maybe 30 days worth of videos with that driver and that truck. What are their driving habits? So that's why, like I've stated in the beginning, it's important to stay up on your day-to-day monitoring or having a third party or a safety provider like HBNext help monitor those systems. If you fail to do that, that's when the attorneys can really get into that data and say, well, what's your company policy look like? What did you do on enforcing your rules and regulations in your policy? And you have all this data from your camera system and your telematics system. So make sure, I can't stress that enough, make sure that you monitor these on a day-to-day basis. And really, once we do this the right way, we're really getting into, the drivers and everybody's habits are really a lot safer on that. So on this, there's a ton of data. I don't know how everybody should be expected to know everything that there is. Aaron, can you kind of explain on the reporting system if I need a speed report or a following too close report or fuel or idle utilization report? How can I get those? And is that something I have to do? Is it something that a company such as Powerfleet can do? How does that work? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really, let's say, three different areas there. So obviously, a company can run ad hoc reports. You and I have done that before. You were looking for something specific, so you wanted to run it on a either a division or a driver. That's easy. But to your point, someone's full-time job is not necessarily just logging into their telematics platform to watch the screen all day. They've got other things to do. So having reports scheduled and reviewing them on a weekly basis is a proactive way to go about that. So absolutely, we can help you schedule those reports and have them automatically delivered to the key stakeholders. But then the other thing that we do is some dashboards. Sometimes you just want to see how you're trending. Is one division trending better on reducing their speed? Are they improving or minimizing their speeding events versus another division? So sometimes looking at dashboards can actually be more insightful because you can see trends. But either way, between those three elements, absolutely, we can help.
Okay. What's the difference between a dashboard and a report?
So I like to think of a report. I think of it as Excel, right? So you're looking at an Excel that has a bunch of drivers or a bunch of trucks and speeding events that took place, where a dashboard might say, hey, last month this division hit a certain number, and now it's a graph. So now I'm looking at last month versus this month. Are we trending down or are we trending up? So it's more of a visual way to think of it like the stock market. You're looking at your driver behavior in that graphical format.
Okay. So if you're like me, I need to keep it really simple. I just want to know, hey, what's those top drivers that are speeding? What's the vehicles that use the most fuel? How much did they drive? Who were the vehicles that were just sitting there idling and not doing anything? That's something relatively easy. Do you guys provide that for me, or is that something that you can teach me? And then once it's up and running, it's a piece of cake for me.
Absolutely. We help you get it set up, and it'll change over time. Your needs will change over time, but we call them our RAG reports. So red, amber, green. You're hoping that everything on your dashboard is green. but you're going to have some amber events. So those are things that, hey, you should keep an eye on them. But realistically, if you want to invoke change, you got to focus on the red areas on your dashboard. So which depots are bringing my numbers down? Where am I seeing the most violations? That's how you're going to, as a company, become, a more a safe, a more responsible fleet.
Okay, so I want to see everybody in the green is what I want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so does my insurance company. All right, so let's kind of talk about what we've covered here. Really the 5 steps of everything for telematics and camera systems. Aaron explained that telematics is more the reporting of data and everything. Camera systems is capturing the events as they unfolded. It's a little precursor to the triggering event, and then it captures and records for a period of time afterwards. We've discussed that for a company, it's important for you to understand, do you need a system? And what does your policy look like? Make sure you have a well-written policy. It's important to do your research with everything. Research the right system and ask questions. Ask questions like, what's a triggering event? How do reports look like? What are they going to capture? Do you have forward and rear facing camera? And now the big part is really looking at side cameras. These are all, features that I've seen with multiple providers. Then it's important. I always feel it's really important that we engage with a provider, whether it's a safety company or a camera company, anything like that, your mechanics, your leasing, that how well are they going to still be there and support you after you get their product, after you get their service. So we've determined the system. We determined who's going to help monitor it every single day. We have picked the installation. It got into all of our vehicles. We had some information systems with our drivers. We looked at data from the first 30 days. We partnered up with our drivers and really explained it to them. We've got some coaching sessions. It's going good. We seem like we got all the bells and whistles and going. Everything is up and running and we're doing good. This is a huge step for a lot of companies to take on, not only in the cost, but they're worried about, I got the data. What if I have a driver who does do something wrong? How is that going to be used against me? So really that education, that partnership, not only with your telematics, your camera system, a third party that helps provide safety for you, working with your management, working with your drivers to understand everything. There's a lot of great data out there. We can really help us as a company improve. Aaron, what, just kind of closing in a recap, what do you kind of run me through your take on everything that we picked a system, it's coming to you. What do you see companies really just struggling with these systems?
Yeah, but before I answer that, let me just go back to your comments about video. So I like to say that there's what happened, and then there's what really happened. So when you're trying to determine what solution is right for you, do you want to just put a telematics system in so you can monitor speed? Or like you said, Kevin, do you want something so that you can prove that the driver was not at fault, right? So that's really
Right.
the big difference between the two. It's putting you on scene when something happens. So that's important. But where I think customers typically struggle is they'll implement the solution, but then they won't necessarily assign someone to mine the store per se, right? So they have it in place, but if you're not looking at the reports or looking at your trends, you don't know if you're improving or if you're getting worse. So I would say that
Okay.
at the very least, on a monthly basis, a weekly, even quarterly, if you're really that busy, pull the numbers or look at your reports and go, hey, did we speed less this month than last or more? That's an indicator that people need to be coached. Are we idling this month more than last? You already pointed out 0.9 gallons of fuel per hour. So we want to be idling less. So think about the events that are important to you, but you've got to log into the platform or look at the reports that you had sent to you and figure out what your trends are. You want to bring those trends that you know will ultimately result in something bad, like egregious speed, right? You want to make sure that those things are being driven out of the business, but you got to look at the data at least periodically to be able to do that.
Would you kind of agree that it's a learning curve, obviously, in the very beginning when I put a system in and I'm looking at everything, but as my fleet and your reports and the trends that I start slowing down a little bit and everything, do you feel then is when I should start looking at like my idle time, my fuel usage and that, or should I try to learn everything all in the very beginning, my first 30, 60, 90 days that I implement a system?
No, I definitely don't think you should try to swallow all of that in one session. So I say pick 5 elements, 3 to 5. There's speeding over the posted speed limit, but there's also egregious speed, right? So will I allow my drivers to go 10% over the posted speed limit? So that's one. But I for sure don't want a driver to ever go 85 or more. Those are 2 different type of events. So how
Gotcha.
often are those 2 things happening? Idling is important because it not only is it just a waste of fuel, it's a waste of money, but it also puts excessive engine hours on the vehicle. So now you're not giving that vehicle its longevity, right? So there's multiple reasons why you don't want to do that. So there's a third one for you. If you have a camera solution, how about minimizing the number of following too close events that you have? So pick between 3 or 5 events. This is really simple, right? Pick 3 to 5 things that are important to your organization, and then just start looking at the numbers. You will quickly find out who your offenders are and who needs to be coached or possibly pushed out of the business if they're just not going to get in line with the company's mission.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Well, I definitely appreciate you in educating me a little bit further on the difference between telematics and the camera systems and everything. Um, hey, Gary, has anybody sent any questions in? What do you have for me today?
Yeah, so now it's time to listen to you guys. We have some questions that are pre-submitted. I have encouraged some more questions in the chat. I'm currently waiting on some of those, so feel free to add your questions in the chat. But let's go over some of our pre-submitted questions that registered for the podcast today. So our first question comes from a user, says, can HB Next manage my camera system and give me a weekly report? I don't have the time or the people to look at this every day.
Great question, and that's something that we see with a lot of our partners, especially if they don't have a truly dedicated safety department. They'll reach out. So the answer to that is yes. HB